Right. Good afternoon, and welcome to another podcast of RK Leadership. My name is Rob Cameronpour, and I'm with Drew Denton today. And I will let Drew introduce himself and kind of walk through his journey of becoming an engineering leader in the industry. So, Drew, thank you very much for joining me today.
Yeah,
And
no,
please,
no problem at
sorry.
all. No problem at all. Thanks for having me be a part of the world-renowned podcast
Thanks
going
very much.
on. So, from where I started to kind of how I got here, obviously, we went to school together, so we were in deep in the engineering. Um, but it's funny because for my path, the old saying, it's not a straight line, and it definitely is not was not a straight line for me. I did probably a couple zigzags through where I got out of the gate, got out of engineering right away out of school, and you know probably did almost the opposite of what engineering kind of did. I got into management right away. Right. And
Nice.
obviously engineering helped me bridge that gap because they were looking for engineers. And at the time, right out of engineering school, right, that was the perfect opportunity for someone like myself. But I went into food, like the food industry right away. And, I was telling this story actually the other day where um, your training, I had to go into High River, Alberta and work in the slaughter plants down there. So I spent, better part of 2 months going through the slaughter plants and working on the line and, doing like hard work, when you would thinking back or when you're actually sitting in class, you're like, oh, I can't wait to be graduated. I'm
That's
gonna
right.
start right away, get the golden job. And it was like, whoa, all right, this is work. Um, so that really kind of humbled my experience after that. And just kind of, after that experience, after working through one of those companies, I ended up kind of broaching back and going back into you know, project management, but kind of engineering in a sense, and kind of dabbled in that for at least the better part of 5, 6 years or so before, again, coming back to management. Right, I took another type of different, not engineering job whatsoever. I remember I managed a group of sanitation individuals and did that for a couple of years, and slowly got used to the people management side of things. And after making mistakes, after doing kind of what managers do, slowly was able to move up into different jobs. And after probably about 18 18 years or so, I left the food industry and now moved over to the chemical industry, which is the same but totally different, right? Because there's still all the same interactions that you do, but you're dealing with something totally different in a sense of what you're making. But
Nice.
yeah, that's kind of been the journey.
Well, glad to hear. And it's interesting you say, Drew, that as an engineer, you kind of zigzag your way, and it's not always a clear path. So can you maybe talk about that in terms of what your vision was when, before you graduated, what you wanted to do and what the reality looked like afterwards?
You're right. I think it's certainly a zigzag, and it's you. In my case, I tried to set out with the good intentions of I want to do engineering, or I want to. At the end of the day, I want to get a job, right? And the I, I use that example a lot of the slaughter facility because it's a good eye-opening experience to actually, because I had to learn how to work, right? And what I mean by that is I had to learn how you got to get up, even if you're sore, you got to go in and day out and do kind of the 9 to 5. Um, we get in tune with going to university a lot back then, of course, where what, I'm going to miss a day, right? I'm going to miss a day. I we're going to get someone's notes, and you just kind of carry on. But you do have to realize that making that transition from university to working, you've got to be there. whether you're online now and it may be a little different, but I didn't really have any good or high expectations in terms of I wanted to do XYZ at 5 years, or, you know, run a CEO business at 10 years, just because I knew who I was enough to know that I'm going to change my mind so many times
That's right.
between that point. And my career has kind of been like that, where it seems, every, call it the 7 year itch or the 5 year itch, where you just
Yep,
hey, you know what? I want to try something new, and someone you met, um, has got an opportunity there for you. And it just kind of works like that. And that's how it was for me.
absolutely. So again, going back to the typical engineer, as you call it, they're all like the mindset is when you come out of university, you're gonna get a design job, try to design something interesting in the world to make a difference. How did you decide to get into management, especially right away from school, versus trying the design piece, saying, okay, this is not for me, and then kind of steering towards the leadership aspect? At what point did you decide that you wanted to get into leadership versus straight to the design world?
I think I don't know if there was really a defining point where it was like I need to do this. Um, it was more so what opportunities were available to me at that not that moment in time, but like just kind of available to you at the right time, right? And
That's
what I
right.
mean by that is, right out of school, you only have so many opportunities to go after right away. And, in my particular case, it was a maintenance management and training course. Um, and I guess what drew me to it originally was the fact that my dad did that. Not the management part. I think he did a bit, but he was a GM guy, right? He was a GM millwright. So he kind of did all the, he would talk about it a lot. We would go down, I think we did a tour around the facility. So that manufacturing kind of, uh, you know, was
In your
ingrained.
blood.
Yeah, it was. It definitely was. Um, and I think that's what originally, and I remember even talking about it in the interview process, working through it. It's like, hey, my dad was, this guy over in GM, like probably a big deal, but it's that kind of, you grow up with it. So anyways, that's what drew me to it at first. I also played a lot of hockey growing up too. And, when you're playing hockey, that team atmosphere, the leadership components around it that you pick up along the way, and it all blended in the right way towards managing people or transitioning to leadership roles. And I say this to any, kind of young engineer, whether it's on LinkedIn or if I meet someone trying to apply to jobs, I'll respond to them back just to, make them aware of just, they got to keep going, right? They got to, keep, whether no experience really is bad experience. And especially when you're around managing people too, I think, the more time that you have on it, the better you'll make mistakes, absolutely. But the better you'll be as long as you're trying to learn, I guess.
That's right. Absolutely. No, and
Yeah.
kind of diving into that point, Drew, if now that you're a hiring manager and you've been hiring multiple people over the years in your career, what do you particularly look for in resumes, or the individual that you're interviewing? What stands out to you, and what are some of the aspects that you look for, whether character or resume wise?
I think the biggest thing that I look for is, and it sounds kind of bad, is no, it's not bad. It's the fit, right? It's are they going to fit in with the group that we have? Um, I think that's, to me anyways, that's because you can hire for you can train people when they come in the door on how to do the job, and sure, experience, relevant experience, and if they've done the job previously at another company. But if they do not have a good fit, and you only get, what do you, people can, crazy people can act normal for an hour, right? But
That's right. Yeah.
you really need to try to hone in on that. And that's what I've been, you know, the last maybe half dozen hires have really tried to hone in on, are they a fit within the culture? Are they a fit within the group that we're working with? Are
So how do
they,
you determine fit with only like an hour long interview? What
it's,
again, what aspects do you look for?
it's going to be, obviously it's different for the role, right? So if it's, let's take an engineering role, for instance, it's who are going to be, depending on the type of role. So the types of roles I've hired for are project engineers, right? They're working in manufacturing environments. So just use an example of that. It would be take them a walk around the plant, right? Have them interact with, some of the line operators, see if they can understand, or at least get a, and you could stage it as much as you can, but just to see how the interaction is with how they respond to people, how they respect people. Do they even acknowledge them, or do they just kind of, blow by them? Um, that's usually a good indicator, right, of how that individual is going to be in the role of a project engineer, right? And that's just an example. But um, a lot of those types of scenarios I would try to embed in an interview, um, in that hour course, whether it's a plant tour, whether it's, different interactions with other people. Um, the other one I did, and um, I don't know if she's on my LinkedIn or not, it doesn't matter, but I would, the interview started right when you got in the door, right? So
Yeah.
part of the interview was interacting with, the operations coordinator that stepped through the door. How did they respond? Did they turn their nose up at you? Were they nice? Were they pleasant? Because that's usually, and that's a good indicator of how the heck they're going to act in the office, right? So those are kind of things.
No, that's amazing. And you know what, Drew? That's pretty interesting because I'm always against the traditional interviews, and I don't think you really get to know a person during an interview because people can rehearse a lot of these questions, and
Yeah.
it's very, like you said, it becomes very staged. And I think it's good that you kind of take them out of that realm and you put them into the real world or the real situation, and you see how they act. So that's a great, I think that's a great
Yeah.
tip for a lot of the young leaders out there to kind of try out. So thanks for that. Um, so again, you and I have had many discussions regarding work. Can you talk to us or walk us through at what point did you start working in a unionized environment? How was it different than working in a normal non-unionized environment? And what kind of what messaging or what kind of tips or suggestions do you have for people that are leading others in a unionized environment?
I think there's similarities for sure, right? And I think a big part of it is, the union stuff aside, there is a good place for it, right? Whenever you're in a large facility, there is a good place for it. But I do think it does come down to solid communication. And I know that word gets thrown around a lot, but we would, whether it's a union leadership or, a individuals on the floor, whatever it is, as long as you do establish a solid, track record of communicating to your guys, communicating to, your management team, if you're, in a senior role, that, you need to be out on the floor. You need to be talking to these guys. You cannot, in manufacturing jobs, and I'll stick with that because it's been my experience. You cannot manage from your desk, right? And it is very, it's the kiss of death, right? When you find people that, they want to, oh, I got a report to do, or I want to, I've hooked up a great system and I can watch how many units fly by the line and I can just sit here and I can
That's
watch
right.
it. But you miss it, and you miss the whole point of that job, right? So anyways, how that reflects to unionized facilities or just regular ones, it's really about, you know what, being on the floor, getting a good pulse of how the plan is running, how the business is running, know your people, know how to, know what's going on, not in their business, right? But definitely know, understand the issues, right? So at least you can try to help them. You can try to um, make their day a little bit better. And it doesn't have to be, you're not out there solving all the world's problems, but you are trying to help them, you know, get better at what they're doing, make their
That's
job
right.
easier, whatever it is.
That's right. No, I think that's a great point and very important. And that's something I try to convey to everybody that regardless whether you're working in a plant or office or the field, it's crucial and it's vital that you do have face-to-face time with your staff and you get to know them on an individual basis, at least, learning their names, having that human interaction with people goes a long way. Again, whether union, non-union, office, field, plant, whatever it is, I think that's very important. And you nailed it. So good job on that, Drew.
You're right,
The
sir.
yeah, the next part I want to talk to you about is again, it kind of pieces in with what we've talked about. Again, you and I have talked quite a bit about performance management, and I wanted to get your take on performance management. What's your style like? What are some of the things you like to share again with younger managers or managers or leaders who are struggling with performance management? What are some of the things you like to share with people on that?
I think some of the easiest, call it easiest wins, so to speak, are, outside of establishing, kind of a good working relationship with your team. But the other one really is, have a good um, kind of network of people to leverage from. And I guess, it doesn't have to be a mentor relationship. It doesn't have to be, a formalized system, but definitely it's have a at least a group of people that you can reach out to that's not your boss, media boss right away, to leverage experience from. And it could be setting up, if you're a large company, kind of a multi-plants organization where there's someone, whether they're across the road or overseas, that you can chat with just about stuff. Um, that's a very good kind of sounding board for things, right? And it's important because a lot of the times some of the issues are, they're happening in more than one spot. So a lot of the
Yeah,
yeah, a lot of the day-to-day stuff that they can work through, sometimes they can leverage from other guys that are working in the same role. So that's one of the things I invite the guys, just to try to establish, right, a good peer group, just to, one is just to understand some of the challenges they have, and they can learn from it, right? They can learn from other people's mistakes, and then, vice versa, right?
that's right. So can you talk to us about a scenario of a challenging situation with an employee that you've had to deal with directly? And again, what kind of methods did you use to performance manage this individual, and what was the outcome of that situation?
So to get a couple, right, there definitely is a couple ones that I've had to go through, right, where, you put someone on a performance improvement plan, um, and, you try to step through it. And I am very much against um, firing people just for the sake of firing people. And I know we joke about that a lot,
Yes.
but it's different, man, when you're in a salaried position and you've invested a lot of time um, watching people grow and watching people try to work through things. And, you hear it a lot. Well, if you're on a PIP or whatever you want to call it, that's just an easy way for, the boss to fire you, right? Because it's with cause or whatever it is. Um, I'll be honest, I put people on performance improvement plans with the intent, and I did this, of having them get better and having them come off those performance improvement plans and improve. Um, you know, it's important for the individual to understand, where they're going wrong, and but also help them and give them all the tools that they need to get better. Right. So I think that's definitely one of the things that I know. And again, I said it already, where people, they get scared where they're on that. They're like, well, you better go start looking for a job. But sometimes the intent shouldn't always be to fire someone,
Yeah,
right? It really should be, hey, man, help them grow, right? Or help them work through um, whatever the challenges they are. And I'm not saying hold their hand, and I'm not saying, forget what they did, but they definitely, let the individuals make some mistakes, but to see them grow, right? So you got to help them make that turning point. So some of the guys
absolutely.
that, yeah, so some of the guys that I've worked through that with, they went on to great careers, and they're still doing it now. So
Yeah, you definitely can't rule with an iron fist because you start to lose respect and people get disengaged like that. And
yeah,
it's funny you say with the PIP because I've been seeing a lot of videos online on social media, and there's a lot of these employment lawyers who kind of bring that up, saying, "Oh, as soon as your manager puts you on a PIP, you
yeah,
should be starting to look for other jobs." So
yep,
it kind of I kind of chuckled when I heard that, but that's not always the case. And you're right. uh Truly, as a leader, you're trying to help people get better and not just make up a pip so you can get rid of them. That's I think counterintuitive of what you want to do as a leader. So yeah, that's
yeah.
a
You may
good
like
point.
to, may want to sometimes, but
Yeah,
no, it doesn't. Yeah, at the end of the day, it doesn't work.
that's right. So Drew, as a leader yourself, what are some of the challenges, again, as a leader, that you faced throughout your career and maybe even more recently, and how do you deal with those issues, and how do you try to improve your leadership skills? What do you do?
So I think earlier on, definitely earlier on, it was the age question, right? And I'm not. I can see myself in the camera, right? We're getting up there, right? But at first it was for the first, because I've been doing this now for the better part of 20 years, and outside of saying I'm old, but at first it was, oh, you're so young, what are you doing? And you know, you definitely got a lot of the wet behind the ears comment. You're young, you're inexperienced, you don't understand what to do. um, I was, I think what I combated that a lot with, I was good at listening, right? Good at listening, respectful in the sense of, I worked the better part of the first 15, I think, in unionized plants. And if you weren't listening to those guys, the experienced guys, and taking in a lot of the stuff and the challenges that they would go through, you were missing out, man. So you earn respect through you know being able to listen to them, but also being able to come through if they do need something. If you're managing a group of millwrights and electricians, as an example, if you didn't understand some of the pain points that they had and try to work on fixing those, you weren't going to be good at your job, right? Because they wouldn't turn around and help you when stuff hit the fan, right?
That's right.
um, but later on, now that it's fast forward 20 years or so, I think now it's trying to understand where you are in your career, right? And I guess where that is, you're for us right now, we're kind of in the middle, right? maybe a little further out to retirement. Um, so now for me anyways, it's understanding that, what, you're in a position to help people. You're in a position to, you know, whether it's someone trying to apply or knocking on the door to, drop a resume off, invite them in, have a coffee with them, or at least have a conversation with them about what they're looking for, right? It it could help someone a heck of a lot more than the time that you spend just, hey, you know what? I just want to hear what this guy had to say, right? So being able to, I don't know if it's giving back's the right word, but know that you're in a position to help people, help people.
That's right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Amazing. And that's part of the fulfillment that you get, in this role is
Oh
helping
yeah.
people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Drew, why don't you talk us about, again, working in that environment, it gets crazy at times. You're dealing with a lot of issues at times. There's a lot of pressure. You can't have any downtime, so there is stress that builds up. There's a lot of expectations from customers. You deal with all these challenges at work. How do you come home and kind of shut that off? What have you learned throughout the years in terms of having that, what they call the work-life balance?
It's yeah, it definitely is something that you go through and you get challenged with a lot, right? And if you're in manufacturing or if you're doing whatever the environment is you're working in, you do have to make sure um, you try to set and establish good boundaries to have that balance. And but previously, and I'm not going to name names because it doesn't help. I would have uh, a manager or a senior manager call, at first, where it would be kind of in between you left work and you're right before you're eating dinner, right? And it's at first it's okay, all right, there may be an issue or maybe there's not. Maybe that's just, but once you, I guess, take the call, maybe once you maybe establish that, hey, that's okay, um, you got to understand that there's an opposite effect to that too, in a sense that, we got young kids, right? You want to be able to spend time with them while you have it because you only have so many hours in the day.
That's right.
So for me, I think the work life balance is where I try to, when I get home, I try to be home, right? I don't run to my computer or I don't run to my phone right away unless it's an emergency. Then yeah, sure. But if it's a call that can wait or an email that can wait, it'll, as bad as it is me to say, it'll wait, right? Because you only have, the kids are going to be young for so long and then they're old and they're not going to want to see you later anyways, right?
Yes, exactly.
So I try to establish some good, boundaries around when I get home from work, and in and even before I start work as well too, right? And I think that's equally important.
Absolutely. And there's two aspects to that as well, Drew. One is, you don't want to set precedents that you're going to be available all the time after work so people
Yeah,
can call you at any time.
no, you don't.
And it's okay. And that does take away from your that valuable family time. And also you're leading by example. So, you as a leader, if you're picking up all those calls and if you're answering everything, then the person that's grooming or that you're trying to groom into that leadership role, they're going to think that that's what you have to do as well because Drew is doing it, so I have to do it as well to kind of be like Drew. And he's kind of shown me the way. So that's a great point that you bring
Yeah,
up, Drew.
no, you're absolutely right. You do have to set a good example.
That's
Absolutely.
right. Awesome. So with that said, Drew, what are some of the the knowledge sharings that you would like to um kind of again share with the younger folks that are upcoming into and want to get it, they aspire to become future leaders. um what are the things you'd like to share and what kind of insights would you give them to set them up for success to become a leader in this day and age?
I think it's amazing how much technology has changed right now, right? And I think that's definitely going to have a factor, whether it's doing podcasts like this, whether it's AI, you know, whatever the issues are. But I do still think that there's two good kind of pieces of advice or little tidbits that I would pass along. And one definitely is, never be afraid to take a position that may be a little off from, let's say, the traditional engineering path, for example. Take a sales job, right? We've got a buddy of ours that's in a sales role right now, man, and he's doing fantastic,
That's right.
right? Or do something that makes you that little bit uncomfortable, or take a position that makes you definitely uncomfortable, because that's the way you're going to grow, right? So that's probably one piece of advice, no matter the year, that young individuals will learn from, right? Even if the job is they find out later it was a flaming bag of poop, but they certainly would understand some of the roles in there. And I think one of the other ones too, which is underrated, and I mentioned it kind of already, is don't, and LinkedIn's great for this, right? Don't be afraid to reach out to people to maybe get some, whether it's informal mentoring or just making a connection with someone, but to understand maybe that person is in a role that you'd like to see. It's a couple tiers up, or whatever the case is, right? Or they're running their own company, and just reach out just to say, hey man, I'd love to understand your experiences, right? And you'd be surprised, right? People respond to that.
Absolutely.
So
No,
yeah, those
and
are
that,
two solid things I think I could offer up to the inquiring minds on that are out there.
and just to segue into that, Drew, if someone wants to get a hold of you, for certain advice on their career or mentorship, where's the best place to find you?
I think LinkedIn. I was going to say the bar, but no, LinkedIn. LinkedIn, you see my name up there, Drew Denton. You can find me off of there. Same thing, man. If they are listening out there, they wanna chat, absolutely. Or through Rob,
Awesome.
or through Rob's podcast.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, if there's anyone that wants to get a hold of Drew, just drop me a DM or drop me a line, and I can point you in the right direction. And Drew has excellent skills and knowledge, not only as a leader, but he's a great human being that I've had the pleasure of knowing you since the university days, and we've kept in touch for many years now. As you said, looking back, the time has flown by, and
Oh
uh, you know,
yes.
we're approaching the midpoint of life, but it's been a journey for sure. Again, I wanted to thank you very much, Drew, for joining me today, and it was a pleasure to have you share your experience and knowledge and expertise with everyone out there. I think it's these kind of forums that help people understand what certain roles are, what leadership's about, and it's having that human interaction that teaches you versus books all the time or
Yep.
theory, which only gives you a piece of that. So thank you again, and have yourself a wonderful day. We'll talk to you soon. And thanks everybody for joining us on this podcast. And we'll definitely see you in the next video. Take care, everyone.
Guys. Yep.